Making your way in the world today takes everything you've got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? All those nights when you've got no lights, the check is in the mail, and your little angel hung the cat up by its tail, and your third fiancé didn't show. Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. You wanna be where you can see our troubles are all the same. You wanna be where everybody knows your name.
Hello, this is Andy, and today's session pertains to a particularly eminent philosopher within the 19th century. His name was John Stuart Mill, and he has made an indelible impression upon utilitarianism, a concept which, in essence, postulates that the moral value of any single action is dictated solely by the concomitant repercussions. Via the utilization of an experimental but nevertheless revolutionary apparatus, we can actually converse with the deceased, and today we will be effectuating this in anticipation of some form of cordial colloquy with John Stuart Mill himself. Hello, John. Could you compendiously introduce yourself?
My father was an imperious and a pertinacious character, and he had endeavored to inculcate me since juvenescence with his own philosophies, and has been assisted by an intimate friend, Jeremy Bentham. Both of the aforementioned figures had formalized utilitarianism, and it had become axiomatic that one of them was endeavoring to transfigure his son into its fiercest advocate. It was due to my father's arguably unconscionable exploits that I had attained the erudition and the perception necessary in order to cultivate this incipient philosophy. Lamentably, such rigorous testing had proven pernicious for my sanity. Subsequent to my convalescence, I had surmised that being sequestered for most of my life was what had led to this breakdown, and I duly took recourse from other philosophers and their respective philosophies. Upon becoming sufficiently edified, I had commenced refining my predecessor's tenets.
Oh, that was quite edifying, John. If we were under more propitious circumstances, I would have supplicated for some form of elaboration. Lamentably, all experimental equipment is inherently and inextricably frangible, so we must proceed. Now, could I just inquire as to what your most significant problem was as a philosopher?
There were numerous aspects of then contemporary life that I had endeavored to rectify. There was my attempt at constructing an infallible philosophy of my own, and incorporate not only those of Bentham, but numerous others that I had given credence to. I had excoriated the oppression of woman. I had advocated the construction of a more egalitarian society. A society can only be encumbered by its denizens' parochiality. But at the pinnacle of it all is the amelioration of society via the attainment of communal happiness, concomitant with which is the interdiction of anything that may encroach upon said aspiration.
Now, with the exiguous amount of time remaining, could you simply expatiate on your own philosophies and how they'd come to fruition within your life?
At least in the sense that I had expatiated on numerous facets of, yet again, then contemporary life, via my rather prominent novels. Economically, I am indubitably repugnant to the disproportionate taxation that the quintessential plebeian had to countenance, at least in juxtaposition with those in more auspicious scenarios. One should also consider that my antipathy to the incontrovertible and perhaps inextricable denigration of woman. There was another one of my more notorious disquisitions, which stated that one may only intervene with the endeavors of another if it will circumvent harm unto others. Whether or not they themselves are grievously discommoded is not relevant. but above all, I had transcended as an intransigent apostle of utilitarianism. It would be far too cumbersome to endeavor to delineate this prodigious concept. Fundamentally, it merely states that we are obligated to indulge in whatever action that produces the most happiness feasible for the greatest quantity of sentient entities. There were evidently incidentals and intricacies to elicit the degree of pleasure one can attain, and the disparity between those of the mind and those of the body. This may seem incongruous for one who advocates the notion of moral intuition, particularly when cogitating upon numerous other philosophers. Nonetheless, interior to me, the concept of moral intuition had transpired to be predominantly arbitrary. While it may appear as if there is some form of dichotomy here, as moral intuitions characteristically collide with our inherent self-serving proclivities, in actuality, perhaps without even being cognizant of it, these intuitions facilitate said purpose, but inexplicably and spontaneously we become more vain towards certain aspects than others. Therefore, the aforementioned intuitions would not corroborate any philosophical sentiment, taking into account the concomitant nebulosity. This is why I was more disposed towards arbitrating such matters by their ramifications, as opposed to their motivations. This is something tangible, comprehensible, and equitable.
Well, seeing as our time's up, I feel obligated at this juncture to thank you for having sojourned here.